Hey guys, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review of the Full Canary series by Holly Black. So I have already done kind of a more in-depth review of The Cruel Prince, the first book in the Folklore series, and I will link that video down in the description box below if you want to check that out before you watch this video. This review is going to be more focused on books 2 and 3, The Wicked King and The Queen of Nothing. So I had debated on how to format this video, if I wanted to do a specific video for book 2 and a specific video for book 3. And let me know down in the comments below if you would have rather me done separate videos like that. But I just felt like there wasn't really a good way to do this video without giving spoilers for each of the books previously, if that makes sense. So I figured I would just do kind of one lump sum video of my impressions on each book and of the series overall, and just kind of do it that way and try it out and see how that feels. This review is going to have spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled for anything, please go ahead and click off now. So with that being said, I'm going to start with kind of a very brief overview of my impressions of book 2, The Wicked King. So having read the whole series at this point, I can say pretty confidently that I feel like book 2 is definitely my favorite of the series. Cardan and Jude kind of really hit their stride in this book. You get to start seeing a lot of Cardan's inner struggles, and his personality shines through more, and that redemption arc that I had mentioned in the first video that I saw coming definitely comes, I feel like, to fruition in this book. He is seen getting more and more humanized, and I say that lightly because he is obviously still very Fae, but you can definitely tell where, you know, his previous cruelty came from. It shows a lot of his backstory with his brother Baelkin and his mistreatment with his own mother, and just kind of how he came to be the way that he was. But also he shows a lot of growth in the series, and you start to see little hints of his true character underneath it all. And he really is just a very misunderstood character, especially I think by Jude more so than anyone else. She definitely seems to have her blinders on about him, and I know that that's partly because of her own feelings for him and her wanting to deny that, but it definitely was one of those very frustrating slow burn romances where they both very obviously love each other to the reader, but neither one of them will admit it or acknowledge it at the forefront of their thoughts. And it's just, oh, it's so frustrating. You just want to bash them together and be like, shut up and love each other. Why? No. Okay. Anyway, the plot itself was super interesting to me. I love that kind of like spy, like working behind the scenes, trying to keep things together and fix all these problems as they arise. Like that kind of plot line is very intriguing to me. It's something that I really like in fantasy. And then there's the part where she gets taken to the undersea as a captive and she's held hostage, and it shows her like mental struggles as she's held captive there and what she has to go through as a hostage and a prisoner and having to pretend to be enchanted when she can't be. And I think it was just all very well done. And then there is the huge plot twist at the end of book 2 that made me want to throw something, okay? So, at the end of book 2, Cardan rescues her from the undersea. He does all this political maneuvering to be able to get her back, right? All these things that he probably shouldn't have done if we're looking at just the good of his kingdom, right? Gets Jude back, she's back, and then he banishes her from Faerie. Just gonna let that sink in for a second. He banishes her from Faerie right after he marries her and makes her the High Queen. We have finally got to see them possibly admitting their love for each other, not directly, but kind of indirectly. And you think, oh, finally, they've pulled their heads out of the sand and realized what they are to each other, and then he just goes and banishes her from Faerie. I will say, end of book 2, I felt very strongly like he had an ulterior motive for that. And at the time, I really believed that that ulterior motive was going to be that he thought that she would be safer, that after being taken by the Undersea and all of that, that it kind of showed him her humanity. And he realized, oh, maybe this human isn't safe in the world of fairy. And maybe the palace and this life of dealing with all of these like constant dangers that she's under by them, you know, trying to get the throne taken from them and everything else. Maybe this is not the best place for this frail human that I love. And so I thought maybe he was trying to get her away so that he could do some kind of big power play to hold on to the throne or to secure the throne for himself more so that she would be safer to come back later. That's what I believed at the end of book 2. So moving on to book 3, The Queen of Nothing. I will say, I think in the ranking system of the series, for me it goes book 2 first, and then book 1, and then book 3 last. And that's just because the first part of book 3 was so frustrating for me that I almost put it down. And here's why. He banishes her, right? So book 3 begins on Jude in the human world, living with her sister Vivi and her brother Oak, and basically throwing the biggest temper tantrum sulk I've ever seen in my life. I would understand if it was that she was just heartbroken and she was upset by what he had done and she felt like they finally loved each other and what's going on now. I would get that. But she basically just pouts and sulks. And I just feel like if she had used her brain and thought for more than 2 seconds, she could have figured out that most likely Cardan had some kind of ulterior motive, but it never even entered her brain. She just automatically assumes, oh, he finally got rid of me. He never wanted me there in the first place. When all of these things that he does in book 2 clearly show her, to me anyway, that that wasn't the case and that he didn't feel like that towards her anymore. So it was just frustrating for me. And then at this point, Cardan is my favorite character, okay? I like him way more than I like Jude, even though I do like Jude, but I like him way more. And so we spend the whole first fourth plus of book 3 with Jude flitting around the human world and then the fairyland and not really seeing Cardan at all. And I get plot-wise why Holly Black chose to do that, but I cannot stand when my author takes away one of my favorite characters in the book and doesn't let me see them or interact with them or something for such a long time. It just gets really frustrating for me, and I'm like, all I want is to know what's happening with Cardan and all of that, and it just kept not happening. So I just got frustrated with it. But it does resolve, and she does eventually get to go back to Fairy through her twin sister Taryn and basically her twin sister killing Locke, which I don't know how believable that whole thing felt to me. Taryn was always portrayed as this very like timid character compared to Jude. She's not violent. Violent's not the place that she runs to. And like the explanation for why she murdered her husband seemed really just not good enough to me. Like, I would 100% get if Black had gone and chose down the road of like he was being abusive, or I don't know, he had threatened her unborn child because she's pregnant at the time, something, or even her sisters, like threatened their lives. It felt very out of character for Taryn to me, for her to stab and kill him over basically nothing, basically just a conversation where she realized that this wasn't the life that she wanted for her and her unborn child. Like, it just didn't feel enough to me. What I can see her doing is going to Jude or even Maddox and asking one of them to kill him. But just doing it herself like that just seemed, I don't know, maybe they're trying to chalk it up to pregnancy hormones, but then that was never talked about either. So I don't know. It was a little unbelievable to me, but we're just going to go with it. So anyway, Jude goes back to court. Cardan and her reunited-ish until Maddox whisks her away. And then once again, here I am frustrated because Card's not part of the story. But again, it's short-lived. Cardan eventually shows up to rescue her, which is just the best thing ever and makes me love him even more. And the fact that he was like, you know what, I'm the High King, but I'm going to save her, and I don't give a crap, and none of you can tell me I'm not going, because I'm going, and I wanna, and I just love Cardan. He's just my favorite. So we see that whole thing, all of the reasons behind why the ghost betrayed them is revealed, and I love all that. And yeah, I just had some frustrations with book 3 is all. So the book eventually, you know, kind of gets wrapped up, and there's the big climax scene where Cardan is supposed to be negotiating with all these different people to bring peace, because Madoc is trying to overthrow them, basically. And he comes out and says that she's the High Queen finally, which, like, took you long enough. And also his whole thing, like, oh, well, yeah, I banished you, but I said any ruler or a fairy could undo it, and you're a ruler or a fairy. It was just like, I didn't necessarily catch the wording there, but I feel like Jude should have, because she has been raised in this world of court intrigue and deciphering all of these riddles that these fairies spin with their mouths, because they can't lie. So they have to talk around things a lot. And I feel like she should have known. She should have caught the wording there, because she's been shown so far in the series to be so good at catching the little loopholes in the things that they're saying and things like that. So I feel like she should have caught it. But I can see how maybe her emotions and her being upset over it and her feeling like, oh, he just never wanted me anyway, blinded her to it, I guess. So anyway, then there's the big scene where Cardan is like, well, like, I'm just gonna, if it breaks the blood crown, and you're gonna follow me because you love me, and that whole thing. And then he turns into a giant snake. I'm just gonna put right here that the minute that happened, and I remembered the prophecy surrounding his birth, and then that Jude goes to find that prophet, who then tells her like more things, and they find out some information about the snake. It was always so clear to me that he was in there and that he was gonna come back. And the fact that Jude was ever considering putting that bridle on him, I would have thrown the dang book if she had done that. I would have been so mad at her. I'm still in shock that she even considered it. I can't believe she even considered it. It hurts my heart. Hurts my heart for Cardan and all the love that he had for her. And I just can't believe she would do that, because I can promise you that he would not even have allowed the notion to enter his brain to do that to her if the situations were reversed, even if his power was contingent on her, okay? It would not have happened. And I'm really glad that Holly Black didn't actually make her go there, because I would have lost my mind. Okay, anyway, I would have been upset. I was upset that whole part of the book as she was considering doing it, and I'm still upset thinking about it now, and it was just, it's not okay. You can't do that to Cardan. Anyway, so as I predicted, she kills him and his body comes out of the snake, because it seemed very clear to me from the prophecy that that's something like that was gonna happen. He was gonna transform back when she killed him and spilled his blood. So, ta-da, there he is. He's all undone. They're the king and queen, happily ever after. They finally love each other, and ride off into the sunset. I was happy with the ending. I'm glad that I was a little, part of me was a little bit worried, just because Holly Black is a little bit of a savage sometimes. Love her books, but she can be a little bit of a savage sometimes, that the book was gonna end with her being like, he's still in there as a snake and I still love him as a snake. And I could just picture Jude ruling with like this basically snake pet of Prince Carton by her throne. Like not bridled, but just like, oh, I don't even need the bridle. He obeys me without it. And I was just really worried that that's where we were going with it. And I am so glad that that's not where we went. I'm gonna give the Folk of the Air series as a whole 5 stars. I really, really did enjoy it. I devoured these books. I mean, man, I think I read them in like 2 or 3 days, all 3 of them. And I have to really be like engrossed in books in a series to get through them that quickly. And I just could not put them down. I am a bit of a sucker for all things fae and fairy related. And like I said in my last video, Holly Black is the absolute queen of all things fairy. She just does them so perfectly to me. So for that reason alone, I was predestined to love them. But I really liked the plot line. I really loved Carton, and you know, I love Jude too. She has her flaws, but I love her too. And yeah, it was just really good overall. So definitely a series that I would recommend to everybody and will be recommending to everybody. It was a really solid read. It was fast paced. It was fun. The books aren't even very long. So yeah, overall very good. So this is the first book. This is The Cruel Prince. And then this is book 2, The Wicked King. And book 3, The Queen of Nothing. And I really like the covers a lot. They look really nice together. They, you know, all kind of have a matching theme. And they're very simple, not too like overdone, but they all have like meaning that you can tell from the cover. I really like them a lot. Sorry if this video was a bit all over the place and a mess. I just kind of wanted to share my feelings about it. Please let me know down in the comments if you would rather have seen me done like a separate, more in-depth review of book 2 and then book 3. I wasn't really sure how you guys would prefer me to approach it, but this was kind of a fun way for me to kind of touch on both books and then touch on the series as a whole and how I felt about it overall. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!